If a demonic puppet murdered your wife and came after you, what would you do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made by our idiot widower, try to make better decisions, and ultimately attempt to beat the demon puppeteer in death.
Nigga, I would be scared for my life if any type of puppet was to chase after me. I feel like that would be like, that would be the only thing that I feel like I would be scared of inside of. I don't know, that's a lot. I feel like the only thing I'm truly scared of is probably death. But nigga, a dog just I used to be haunted by Chucky.
Dead silence.
Nigga,
everyone knows you go to the movies to read, so a title card tells us the word ventriloquist came from the belief that the dead could talk through the stomachs of the living. Jamie Ashton and his wife Lisa are flirts repairing the sink in their janky-ass apartment when there's a knock at the door. There's no return address, only Jamie's name scrawled across the parchment. They tear the wrapping away to find Slappy the Dummy from Goosebumps laid out in red velvet. Jamie has no idea who could have sent this thing, but clearly it's somebody who hates him. Lisa tells Jamie it reminds her of a terrifying poem she learned as a kid about Mary Shaw, who could have no children, only dolls. It's lucky there wasn't a return address on it. Now we can toss this creepy monstrosity into the garbage, right? Right? Oh, we're keeping this, and we're propping it up in our bed under the sheet for shits and giggles. Cool. Maybe Lisa's one of those wives who wants to collect on our insurance policy. I mean, this looks like the sort of trademark a serial killer would send to their victim. In a few minutes, Jamie will also tell us that in the town he's from, puppets like this are a bad omen. So why would you keep it? As any reasonable adult would do, Jamie should prop this thing up in the apartment lobby with a free sign on it on his way out the door to fetch takeout. Or, send it through a wood chipper. Look, I'm not gonna tell you what to do with the creepy gifts that land on your doorstep. All I'm saying is this thing came gift wrapped with Jamie's name on it. This means the gifter has our name and knows where we live. How about we write out a quick list of everybody we know? Jamie's in his 30s. He has like 5 friends max to put on that list. No real enemies to speak of except for his dad, who he had a strange falling out with years ago. While Jamie's out grabbing Chinese, it starts moving on its own, messing with the power and the kettle on the stove. Lisa's mind immediately jumps to her new house guest instead of checking the hallway to see if the power's still on in the rest of the building. Sure, we could just wait outside the door until Jamie gets home, or knock on a neighbor's door, but where's the fun in that? I know my first instinct is to go pull the sheet off that creepy ass doll laying in her bed. Lisa reaches for the sheet when it suddenly envelops her and hurls her into the hallway with internal injuries. An invisible force reels Lisa in across the floor. She screams, but no one hears her. After all, she lives all alone out here in the middle of the... Oh, right. She lives in an apartment building where a half a dozen people should have heard her screaming, but somehow didn't. Jamie comes home to a near house fire and Lisa's calm voice beckoning him deeper into the house. In the hallway, he slips in blood. It's not a good sign. He follows Lisa's voice to the bedroom and tears off a sheet to find Lisa's brutally mutilated body, mouth unnaturally wide, arms and eyes frozen in fear, laying where the puppet once did on the bed. I think this is a great time to talk about this video's sponsor, Dislight. You know, the turn-based mobile role-playing game where you LARP as a demigod with ancient divine powers who can actually affect the world, saving it from the Miramon hordes.
I remember downloading games from
Police department effortlessly accuses Jamie of killing his wife and trying to use a rose he brought her as a fake alibi. Really, Lipton? A rose? I'm insulted. If I wanted to murder my wife and get away with it, I'd have an elaborate bulletproof alibi and your beat cop ass wouldn't be on the case. I digress. Jamie asks him to look into the puppet, the strange delivery that appeared on their doorstep right before. But Lipton doesn't believe in bad omens. Yeah, this is about the time I remind you that cops are not your friends and no conversation with them in a room for questioning is casual. The moment Lipton mentions us as a suspect in our wife's murder, the first thing out of her mouth is, I invoke my right to remain silent and I invoke the right to speak to my lawyer. Then we shut the fuck up no matter what the cop says next. Jamie returns to his apartment where we see that the crack team at Amityville's worst police department cataloged some evidence, but not all of it. Like the ventriloquist dummy laying by the bed where Lisa died, or the massive trunk it came in. At this point, I'd be thinking slasher more than Spectre. I'd search for a local lab or drug-addled forensics tech who I could pay to collect and test any evidence from the trunk and doll. Jamie tears away the velvet trunk lining to expose a poster for The Amazing Mary Shaw and Billy Show at Raven's Fair. Another raging clue. That Mary Shaw sounds familiar. Well, I'm sure glad her dead wife remembered that obscure poem from her childhood just before the puppet killed her. Puppet strapped in like a toddler in the backseat, Jamie same days into Silent Hill. Raven's Fair, a one-horse town that butchered its horse. Jamie arrives to his childhood mansion where his hot new stepmom Ella greets him at the door. There, he learns his father Edward had a stroke recently and is now wheelchair bound. Jamie asks his dad about the Mary Shaw poem. Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls. Ella finishes it for him. If you see her in your dreams, be sure you never ever scream. Is something being foreshadowed here? Could this nursery rhyme that everyone from this town already knows supply everything we need to defeat the evil in this place?
I don't know about defeating it.
Jamie crashes at the last night in Soho motel where he decides to prop Billy up at the table like a wooden boy instead of, you know, stashing his creepy ass in the case he came in and then put that in the trunk of our car. Billy plays peekaboo with him by the bedside before Mary Shaw unfurls in the corner and Jamie wakes himself from the nightmare by turning on the light. Okay, can we put Billy in the trunk now, Jamie? Or drop kick him into a campfire? At the funeral home, the mortician begins his examination of Lisa's body. Recognizing the gruesome handiwork instantly, he hears the childlike voice of his wife, Marianne, who's hiding in the crawl space claiming she's back. Can't get to her down here. That's reassuring. Any other tips, Marianne? Do we need to go stuff our own emotional support ravens? Even though his wife is full of life and laughter, Jamie does the sensible thing of burying her in the family's gothic graveyard with the weeping angels from Doctor Who to keep her ghost company. He notices a woman wandering in the woods. It's Marianne. She warns him Mary Shaw is back. Before her husband drags her away, she tells him to bury the doll. Jamie discovers a gravestone and learns that Mary Shaw was a real person. I don't know about you, but if a cryptic woman comes out of nowhere to warn me about the exact person haunting my life like a desperate ex, I'm chasing after her for all the details to this burying ceremony I need to do. I'd ask where it needs to be done, if I have to say any spells or Bible verses over it, and what'll happen if I scream when Mary Shaw appears in my dreams. Yeah, Jamie hasn't reached the evil doll did it realization yet, but he himself said that these puppets were bad omens. At the very least, I'm burying Billy in the shallow grave behind the motel during broad daylight. I'm not going anywhere with him after the lights go down. And I am definitely hitting up the town hall or the local library for information about Mary's death when I finally believe she killed my wife. I'd want to figure out why she targeted me specifically, and once the lab I paid came back with fingerprints from Billy's truck, I would want to confront the very alive human person shipping puppets for Mary to victims out of town. Jamie brings the puppet to Mary Shaw's graveyard and searches the headstones until he finds one for Billy and digs up the empty casket. Billy's mouth clicks open and the sound in the forest dies. Jamie tosses Billy into the casket, but oh no, Billy's got a jump scare him before Jamie seals him inside. Back on the road, figures dart around Jamie's car before Billy pops up by his window. Naturally, Jamie immediately leaves the safety of his automobile to go look for him. You dumb son of a bitch. Do you want to die? This is as bad as stepping out of your cabin into pitch darkness when something's throwing rocks at your window. You see this? This is Jamie's evil doll did it moment. If burying Chucky's pervier cousin isn't gonna cut it, it's time to try everything. Salt it, burn it, wrap it in iron, stab it in the heart with silver, drench it in holy water, everything. My first stop is Home Depot to grab a fire extinguisher, a Schrader valve, a hose clamp, and 1/4 inch brass hose adapter, a wind-resistant barbecue lighter, fuel, a hammer, 3/4 inch lamp wicks, a bike pump, and a faucet supply tube. Can you guess what I'm building here? Yes, a compact flamethrower to keep in my car and carry with me anywhere I go. Jamie returns to his dumpy motel. He steps out of the bathroom to Billy's frozen face, Detective Lipton sitting in Billy's seat by the window. Lipton tells Jamie he's been following him. He talks through Billy to suggest that Jamie buried the doll because it was evidence that would prove he murdered Lisa. This guy's short memory is infuriating. We literally told you to investigate the puppet back when you first questioned us. At least he's done us a solid by breaking into our motel room so we can lodge a formal complaint against him that we can use in court later. Plus, he's broken the chain of command by not taking the so-called evidence back to his station for immediate processing, and by not wearing gloves when he touches it. Jamie tells him the story of Mary Shaw, but he should be thinking through the steps the detective would have to take to get to his room tonight. Following us, I could almost understand, but Lipton would have had to follow us out to the graveyard, watch us bury Billy, then dig it up, contaminating a whole slew of forensic evidence in the process, just to come jump scare us with it. I mean, there's dedicated, and then there's just weird. At least Lipton takes the creepy thing with him for the night. The next morning, Jamie waits until Lipton leaves the motel before breaking into his room and stealing the puppet back. He takes it to the mortician. In a flashback, we learn the fate of Mary Shaw. A little boy heckled Billy during a stage performance and disappeared. Shortly after, Mary was murdered. Her creepy-ass will stated that all 100 of her dummies were to be buried with her after she herself was turned into a doll. This is what happens when you neglect your kids. In the years following her death, dozens of townsfolk died and had their tongues ripped out. Apparently, in all that time, nobody thought to go out and start a big bonfire in her grave. Also, is anyone else getting Nightmare on Elm Street vibes here? Mary and Freddy were both murdered for suspected child killings, and they seek revenge by going after the families of those that killed them. They've also got their fanfic poems going for them long after they've died. Jamie enters Mary's theater. He ventures backstage and up onto a rickety catwalk for the thrill of it, until he comes to Mary's rooms. A weathered trunk holds Mary's ancient scrapbook containing the IKEA manual for building the perfect doll. It's like a reverse Pinocchio. To make a wooden puppet, you need a living boy. Turns out the little kid who went missing after her big performance was related to Jamie. Surely we'll take this book of incredible importance with us back to town so we can read over at length and discover all of demonic Mary's weaknesses. Surely this is the key to ending all the nightmares and the creepy doll stalking. Oh no. Oh, okay, we'll just leave it here, I guess. Another great decision by Jamie. Back at the funeral home, Henry hears his wife rambling to Billy. She claims he spoke to her, but Henry refuses to believe her. He decides to put Billy back in the box when he hears his wife's voice coming from the crawl space. Billy watches as Henry crawls inside. Mary locks him in. He screams, and she uses her Resident Evil tongue to feast down on his
I knew
it. Puppet demons, man. How do they even work? Henry's lived in this Silent Hill town his whole life. Why is Mary killing him? Was it because he talked to Jamie and gave him some advice? Or was it just because he was going to rebury Billy? In either case, why does she take so long to attack? Why hasn't she killed Jamie already either? All good questions. I hate to speak ill of the dead. Who am I kidding? I'd love to do that. But Henry knows better than to shoot his mouth off in front of this thing. He knows it's haunted. He knows it doesn't want to be reburied. And he knows better than to keep leaving this crawl space open for his dementia-stricken wife to crawl into, especially with a demonic ventriloquist on the loose. If only Henry didn't have the attention span of a stoner. He could have just left Marion under the house to sulk while he stayed and focused on burying the doll. You know, the thing that's causing her erratic behavior in the first place. He also forgets his own survival mechanisms. Back when he was a kid, he clapped a hand across his mouth to keep from screaming when he saw her before the rhyme about her was ever even written. Why doesn't he do that again? Actually, let's talk about Mary's MO here for a second. She won't attack unless you scream. Sounds to me like every single one of these townies should have ball gags in their mouth the second they know Jamie's come back with a demonic doll. Shove a sock in there, wear a gimp mask, whatever it takes to prevent yourself from screaming entirely. Not only that, but Jamie heard the rest of Mary's poem, which tells us this very obvious handicap within the first hour of returning to town. Jamie could have beat this thing with a 4-inch piece of duct tape. Did I just beat this puppet? I think I just beat this puppet. Jamie confronts his father about the little boy from the scrapbook, Michael Ashen. Edward tells him Michael was his uncle. When he went missing, the Ashens and men from town laid the blame on Mary and made her scream when they cut out her tongue and killed her. She came back for revenge, targeting the men responsible and every person in their families.
Mary Shaw.
What do you want?
To silence all those who silenced me.
He should have fucking known that kicking his son to the curb, aka metaphorically kicking the can down the road, wasn't a solution, and should have gone on the offensive from the very beginning.
Lisa's death made me realize we can't run from our fate.
No shit. You didn't realize this when their wives, children, and children's children had their tongues ripped out? Only just now, when my pregnant wife was murdered. I'd have it in me to Spartan kick old Ed into the fireplace,
I didn't even know she was pregnant too,
would happen to expose Ella's whole charade. At the front door, Jamie runs into Detective Lipton, who shoves himself inside and tells him that someone dug up all 101 of Mary's dolls. Wait, how does he know this? Did he spend the entire day digging up doll graves? Ugh, goddamn. Jamie then gets a garbled up phone call from Henry telling him he can prove he didn't murder Lisa if Jamie meets him at the old theater. Before the detective can arrest Jamie, he bolts into his car and hauls ass for the theater. We're gonna stop by Home Depot first and get our flamethrower assembled, right? No, okay, just checking. Jamie arrives to the theater unarmed and follows Henry's definitely dead voice across the skywalk to Mary's room. Lipton catches up to him with a 12 gauge right before Henry's dead voice calls out to both men. A woman begins to hum. Jamie tells him not to scream no matter what happens. Should have brought those ball gags. Lipton finds Billy's checkered cousin and tosses it behind him, pulling down a curtain that reveals 100 dolls and glass crypts lined up along the walls. Billy number 57 is missing. A red curtain catches their attention. They whip it aside to find the rotting body of Michael Ashen halfway through his dollification process. Suddenly, all the puppets begin to turn. Pennywise tells Jamie that she won't stop until she has silenced everyone who silenced her, a convincing motive. He asks her why she targeted Lisa. She offers to tell him if he comes closer. Since Jamie has the death wish of a squirrel crossing a busy road, he does just that. Mary tells him Lisa was pregnant and she wanted to kill the last Ashen. She licks Jamie and materializes. Lucky for Jamie, Lipton levels the pump and blows her away. It's not enough. Mary takes her doll fetish to the next level as one by one she begins to possess her puppets. Lipton shoots a few down before Jamie sets fire to the rest. They break for the rickety skywalk, but Mary's rigged it, and Lipton plummets off the edge. When he inevitably screams, Mary rips out his tongue. Again, should have brought the ball gags. She comes for Jamie, but he covers his scream and falls into a pit of the liquid luck that leads out to the lake. He remembers the Billy doll is still very much unburned, so he rushes to Henry and Marion's house and discovers Marion cradling Henry's dead body. Marion tells him Ella took Billy's doll. You know what? After all the shit I've learned in the last 48 hours, I say let them keep the damn doll for a few more hours while I go fetch a young priest, an old priest, and a flamethrower to deal with it in the middle of the day. At the manor, Jamie finds Billy's doll. Mary leaps out at him from the shadows, and he tosses the doll into the fire, causing Mary to writhe in agony. He then spots his father in his wheelchair nearby. When Edward's body falls forward, Jamie discovers Ella had been puppeting him like a ventriloquist dummy all along. I gotta give props where props are due. I did not see that coming. And to Ella, I mean, that was quite the feat to pull off. Jamie realizes Mary is possessing Ella. He finally loses his mind and screams, opening himself up for Mary to score one more in the revenge column. I just wonder why the hell it took so long. If Edward was already puppified, you could have just made Jamie scream by stabbing him and twisting the knife back when he first walked in the door. Seems like she was more interested in him knowing why she was targeting him rather than actually killing him. Every clue surrounding this doll, every step Jamie took, sucked him back into his hometown drama more and more until it eventually consumed him. He would have been better off tossing Billy into the Goodwill pile and burying Lisa in the nicer cemetery she deserved. He should have realized very early on that the puppet was sent to him to draw him back to Raven's Fair, where Mary could finish her dark quest for post-mortem revenge. I'm not saying she still wouldn't have come after him had he stayed away, but everything after his initial arrival to his childhood home is a lot of effort to put in when she could just possess Ella's body and stab him when he walked in the door. As for Detective Lipton, if he had done his job and investigated the puppet when Jamie told him to, he would have likely learned about the murders in Raven's Fair and started a larger investigation into the region than he does here, digging up doll graves and breaking into motel rooms. If Jamie had gone for a flamethrower when he had the chance, he could have burned the theater to the ground long before he even realized the connection to his family. And he would have been armed when he discovered who Ella really was. Who am I kidding though? This dude willingly hauled around a demonic dummy and propped him up like a real boy in motel rooms and mortuaries. He had no chance. Honestly, it seems like just putting duct tape over your mouth and burning everything in sight could have beat this puppet in like 2 seconds. So I think the demon puppeteer from Dead Silence was beaten.
That music sort of scared me. Me personally, I just wouldn't get caught up inside the situation to begin with. That's just me though, and I don't think I would scream. I do get like, ooh, like I don't know how to do it, and I don't get that like that. Yes, sir. That's the end of this. How to beat a demon puppet in dead silence.